It's a 2025 Phoenix Open, but let's be honest, we all know it as the Waste Management. Welcome, everyone, to Tea Time. I'm Andy, finally being joined by Nick Borrman. We got our schedules together. We're going to break down the Phoenix Open. We're going to break down the course for you. We're going to give you some Draftkings Darlings, some players that can trip you up. Nick is going to go over the top 10 in total strokes gained, as well as some outright winners. And then we've got an awesome cross-sport parlay, golf, and the Super Bowl that Nick is going to go over here at the end of the show. Nick's got a soccer special for you. I've got a 7-day pass because I'm running red hot in sports, 41-17 run the last 2 weeks. So we'll tell you all about those, but let's get into it real quick, Nick. We're going to TPC Scottsdale. Obviously, the 16th hole is the big, the big thing that everyone knows about this event. But, the course, it's a par 71. To me, it's not that difficult, but I think there's some really good, fun holes that reward really good shots. And then there's some holes that can really punish some bad shots. To me, it always comes down to weather here. You never know what you're going to get. This week seems to be beautiful. It looks like there's not going to be any wind. It looks like it's going to be pretty warm. I will say it does appear that this course is going to be pretty fast. So it looks like the ball is going to roll quite a bit on the drives. Controlling the ball on the greens could really be difficult. I mean, this is in the desert. This could be just a really dry air and some dry surfaces. So, you get long drives, you get shorter clubs, more loft, maybe you can get more spin on it. But to me, this course is going to come down to who can control the ball on the green and proximity to the hole. So the par fives are pretty gettable. This is a par 71. I love the finishing 3 holes. I think it may be one of my favorite 3-hole stretches in all of golf. What else do you want to add to TPC Scottsdale here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you've seen this tournament before, the setup and the stands and the uniqueness of this event. The change I think that's worth noting this year is that they're letting the rough grow. Andy, it's normally been listen, if you ever play golf out of season in the South like this, and they do the overseeding, right? You get the rough usually is not in season and it's not growing as much, and it's kind of limited to 1.5 inches, 2 inches. They've actually overseeded it. It's set to grow to 3.5 inches for this week. So obviously that should have an impact on scoring for the week, especially as you hit it on the golf course being drier, firmer, faster. That means less spin. And if you are in the rough hitting into those greens, that could certainly have an impact. Last year's weather here was like, it was basically every day from May through October was 100 degrees. It was like 113 straight days. There was 159 days at one point in a row without rain. I mean, it is a desert. I guess it does happen, but that was a record. So yes, to say that this place is dry and hasn't got much precipitation over the last year really is an understatement. But I do believe that rough could have an impact on scoring this year. Last year, the winners got the 21 under, but prior to that, the 10 years prior to last year, the winner score had fallen between 14 and 19 under. So not as low scoring as some of the tournaments we've seen, but a little bit easier, I guess, than we saw probably last week too at Pebble. It would look like it was tough a few days, but the weather does look perfect overall. So that's really all I'm going to add. Otherwise, I think most people kind of know the layout of this place. And like you said, at least that 16th hole, everybody kind of knows. And it's always fun on Monday when the clock turns midnight on Sunday going into Monday and the golf week resets. The first thing that pops in my Twitter feed, Tiger Woods is hole-in-one here. So I always recommend, if you haven't seen that video, you got to Google Tiger. That was pre, stadiums there, but it was still an absolute insane video to watch, and the beer that gets thrown around when he does that is pretty epic. So of course it was Tiger, but that's all I have for course notes for this week.
Yeah, I would think we're probably looking at high teens here. I mean, I just always keep going back to when Justin Thomas said, he's like, if you give us receptive greens and no wind, we're just going to tear it up. And that was at a major. So that is always just really stuck in my head, that when he came out and said that, was like, if you don't give these guys much defense on the course, they're just going to run through it. So, but like we said, the dryness is probably going to be the big defense. You're probably going to, it's going to be tough to get the ball, to stick right there, next to the hole. So there's going to be some rollout, and I'm thinking high teens here. It's going to be the way to go. All right, let's take a look at The total strokes gained, top 10. Nick, I had to fumble through this myself because you were here the last couple of weeks. We finally have the graphic back. Walk us through this, and of course, you got some. You got the usual suspects up at the top with just a couple surprises.
Yeah, of course, and this to see the separation from Scottie to next best on this list, which is Hideki, is just remarkable. I mean, the difference between him and the next best on the list is basically the difference between 1 and 2 is the same between Hideki and the rest of the field. It's pretty remarkable. But there is no surprise there at the top, and you can imagine the next couple names are named household names everybody knows. As you get down towards the bottom of the list, you got to be a little bit weary here. Remember, I always do this graphic over the last 12 months because historically, PGA Tour winners of what I've shown over the last few years, this top 10 graphic does lead to finding outright winners, but it's based on a 12-month playing window. But guys at the bottom, you look at Billy Horschel, Siwoo Kim, Sahith Theegala, great over the last 12 months. That means last year at this time, and they were playing well and for the next few months. But you can see that drop off over the last 6 months and over the last 3 months. The last 3 months is a little skewed with, November, December, and a lot of people being off with the holiday kind of stuff. But now that we're back into, 4 or 5 tournaments again, it's starting to have more merit. So do be aware of those guys here at the bottom. Andy, at the very top, I did switch one thing for this year. Last really 2 years, I've kind of just noted the overall percentage of winners from this graphic. So if you're in the top 10, historically over the last, now going into 3 seasons, it's about a 50% outright winner margin, meaning if you're in that top 10 graphic, that's where the winner would come from 50% of the time on the PGA Tour. But I started a deeper dive into that. And I said, well, how does that factor when you're playing in these deeper fields, your majors, your signatures, your playoffs versus, the regular field events, which, to be honest, I always felt were more of a crapshoot, and this has proven it. So at the very top, Andy, over the last 2 years and now the 2 events this year, 23 of 35, so 66% of these big events, so again, signature, major, and playoffs, the winner has been in the top 10. And 80% of the time, they've been in the top 25. So I don't obviously have the top 25 on the screen, but if you use sites that have the strokes gained data and you kind of deep dive into that top 10 or maybe sneak down a little bit to the top 25, 80% of the time, the winner is within that top 25. And it makes sense. You get to the best events, the best fields, somebody that is ranked high is probably going to come out on top. And so far this year, Hideki, he won. He was in the top 10. And, of course, Rory last week. Those are the 2 signature events we've had so far. It's proven true. So I think this week, although it's not a signature event, I just left that graphic up there just to give you an idea. And maybe it's more of a crapshoot, you could say, this week. But Sky's in the field, so it always feels not as much of a crapshoot when he's in the field. And, I mean, his outright odds this week are ridiculously low. So anyway, this is the strokes gained over the last 12 months, 6 months, 3 months. I always try to look for guys, obviously, that have been playing well over 12 months, but hopefully that trend is continuing or even getting better in the shorter span. And that's where I usually add the notables at the bottom. Tom Kim, Sepp Straka, Max Grazerman. These are guys maybe that they weren't quite in the top 10 over 12 months, but their numbers have jumped in the last 6 months and 3 months, especially Straka, who, won a couple weeks ago and then had the 36 and 54 hole lead last week. And I guess he was battling a little bit of an illness. Is kind of why he stumbled or fumbled a little bit there towards the end. One last thing I'll add, it doesn't really show here in the strokes gain graphic, but when you're choosing outrights this week, aside from that graphic, the trend that's happened here, Andy, that's worth noting is each of the last 9 winners of this event have all had a finish here of tie for 7th or better, right? So this is not like an event that's just somebody that's never really played well here before will come out and win. So each of the last 9 winners has finished at least tie for 7th, no worse than tie for 7th. We've had, so a lot of them were like 3rd place, 2nd place, top 5, whatever. But tie for 7th was the lowest best finish of somebody that's won over the last 9 years. And if you use that, do you think that trend is going to continue? I know you like to talk about which trend is your friend, right? And which one is worth following. If you think that trend is going to continue, there's only 23 players in this field that week that have had a finish of tie for 7th or better. So between the strokes gained and between that stat I just threw out there right now, that really does shrink your outright pool. Of course, that also takes away from the sexy, long outright numbers because those guys are going to be more in the 30, 40, 50 to 1 range. But hey, those are still great to cash as well.
Yeah, what'd you think of Scottie Scheffler? I thought it was about what I expected.
Yep.
Didn't think he was completely dialed in, but that was a little bit to be expected. he probably needed a tournament to knock the rust off and get back into shape. And he still finishes top 10.
It's amazing. That was like his third worst finish over the last 12 months or something like that. I'm like, what? He still was top 10. I did cash a nice same game parlay, a cross sport parlay rather, on Scottie still finishing in the top 10, because I figured, listen, even with a little bit of rust and maybe not quite his A game, he's still better than pretty much everyone.
Yeah. I don't think there's any worries about him going forward. I expect him to probably be in the final group on Sunday. That the stat on Hideki's it kind of it goes against what I think of him, because he wins the first tournament, shoots the ridiculous score at the Century. He's gotten worse every tournament since. I think he went like 60th and outside the top 30 and outside the top 40. So a little worried about him. I got to tell you, I am liking what I'm seeing from the next two guys, Justin Thomas and especially Sam Burns. Burns has always been consistency, has been his big kryptonite. He seems like he's getting a little bit better with that over the last year. I took a bet on him over Hovland, and they tied. Burns, I thought, played pretty good. Hovland just had an out of the mind first round and then really didn't do much since. But I think Thomas and Burns, I don't know. I think they're just, Thomas looks like he's a little bit resurgent. Like, looks like he didn't have a good finish last week, but he got really unlucky on one of those shots where he ended up taking a double bogey on a par 5 because it was a bad lie in a bunker. It could have been an easy 2 or 3 shot turn. So I don't know. What have you made of Justin Thomas and Sam Burns? I have high hopes for them this year.
Oh, definitely. Justin Thomas has been resurgent, no doubt. I think, it's just a matter of when now he gets back into the winner's circle. I know it's been a little while, but he went through that stretch. It was like 6 to 10 months really, where he was just nowhere to be found. Couldn't, had to do everything he could to try to make the playoffs. Didn't quite do it. So yeah, it's nice to see him back into form. And I think sky's the limit really for him if he can just continue doing what he's doing. Sam Burns, I agree with you 100%. He is a guy that's been tough for me to bet over the years, but he has shown that he's been more consistent as of late. If you look at his most recent starts, even going back to like the Open Championship last year, he's been in the top 30, every single time he tees it up, and a lot of them have been top 15. So he's back there. Will he break through again and win? Probably at some point. He has past wins, and he has 2 great finishes here the last 2 years, Andy. So you're probably right to think he's going to have another good week this week.
All right, let's move on to so you guys know I do my favorite hole, and then I do the 18th hole, but we're just going to do 16, 17, 18. It's just such a great stretch. These 3 holes are just so good. You start with the 16th hole, and listen, there's just not much to it. It's a short iron coming in there. It's wedge. I don't know, maybe 9 iron if the pin's way back. It is going to come down to how firm are the greens. Like on Saturday, do they water them to try and get a little bit easier to try and get a hole in one here, Nick? But really, this hole is just all about the fans, the fun. It's everything that we love about golf. I know that Rory has openly said it's gotten a little bit out of control, and like, oh, give me a break. Why can't we have nice things? So I do think it's interesting him and Hovland are not playing this week. Maybe it got a little bit too much more, but 16th hole, probably one of the most iconic holes in golf history. I love the 17th hole. I think this is actually my favorite hole if you take away the fans and everything. Just like as an actual golf hole, I love this one. It's a drivable par 4, but it is not that easy if you do not get it close to the green. So I think this picture up here kind of best illustrates it. So the green is so big that it really does depend where the pin is. Like we've seen guys, Nick, chip from over here, which is I think where most of the balls kind of end up, landing.
Yeah, yep.
We've seen guys chip it over into the water.
Yes.
That happens. Happens. And with fast greens this week, there's no telling what can happen. So guys are going to drive the ball up. If you get it to roll on the green, it's a 2-putt birdie, but guys will hit it into this water. Yep. The water will absolutely seize balls. And like I said, we've seen chips go up and over the green in there in some really, really big numbers. So coming out of that 16th hole, where it's a short, iron, and then, you got to go for it. I mean, this is a birdie opportunity if you hit the right drive. So, Nick, I really, really love this hole. Every year I look forward to this one. You got any thoughts on this hole?
I mean, it's a fantastic hole. It's the true risk reward. Yes, you're right. Most players will probably go for this green, and your bailout is to the right because you got that little water that jetsons on the left. And I remember, every year though, there's somebody in those final groups that just slightly overturns one, and it's running towards that water, and a lot of the times it does not hold up. And if it is firm and fast, it's going to make it even worse. I wonder if this year there'll be more 3-woods if it does play true. That can still get to the green just because of the firmness. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's a great hole. The only reason I think, if you're not going to see that maybe towards the end of the tournament is if somebody's got, 3-4 shot lead. There's absolutely no reason to do that. But I think if it's anywhere close, if you're chasing, you're going for it. And if you're on top of that, you see people going for it, you kind of have to follow suit. You can't just lay back and play for par because they're going to make birdie. So it makes for a great finish.
Then we move to the 18th hole here. So you're driving it up and over water. This landing area is a little bit thin here in the fairway. If you blast it to the left and it clears the water, you've got this weird situation here where you could get a good lie or you could get a horrible lie. We see a lot of guys end up in these bunkers because they bail out to the right because they don't want to miss water. If you do hit it in the fairway, it's a pretty basic approach coming in. It's not that long of a hole. Depending where the pin is, it's pretty gettable. There's just going to be a lot of pars on this. You're just going to see a lot of pars. There could be some birdies if somebody gets in trouble with a bad lie. Then you could bring a little bit of trouble, but with how accurate these guys are and how good they are, it would take a pretty horrific tee shot to cause any problem. So it's not the greatest closing hole, on tour. I rated a 6.3 out of 10 just because it really, truly isn't that difficult if you hit the fairway. And after you hit the fairway, then there's really not much. Even these bunkers on the right, it's not that hard to get it on the green and 2-putt for par. So it's not a great 18th hole, but it like with the crowd, that just adds just so much more electricity through it. It's just an absolute shit show on Sunday. So that's 16th, 17th, and 18th holes here at TPC Scottsdale. And yes, I pulled some pictures of some of the costumes. The Let Him Cook, that's the Minwoo Lee, I believe. Minwoo is in the field this week, so we might see some more chef's hats. Great times. So, all right, Nick, let's talk a little outright winner and top 10. This guy was great last week. Didn't have the best finishing round, but he's popping up more and more on the top of the leaderboard these days, isn't he?
Yeah, and I guess it's, I mentioned him in the strokes gain graphic. It's not too much of a stretch here to bet on him again. I like where his number has dropped to after a couple of good results. 45 to 1 to win is I think more than fair in this field. And again, I mentioned his good week again last week, 36 and 54 hole lead at Pebble. And again, he won in his previous start 2 weeks prior to that at the Amex. He's been locked in, really. He's been averaging more than 1.15 strokes gained over each of his last 7 events. And that's on approach. That's going to play at any venue. I don't care. If you're hitting your irons like that, doesn't matter what golf course it is, it's going to play. It's going to work. It's going to keep you in contention. So, Scottie has separated himself from the field because he's tee to green so dominant, but really it's his approach play that has just leaps and bounds ahead of anyone. So you find a guy like Straka or anybody else that's, it's a distant second, but he is right up there, and he is better than the rest of the field in that category right now. So I'm just going to ride that wave. He's not long. I mentioned, off the tee, he's not long. I mentioned the fact that the rough is being grown longer this year. So perhaps that's going to have an extra help for him this year. I've kind of waited a little bit more than usual because of that. And, maybe it makes up a couple of shots difference over the course of 4 rounds from a guy that, can avoid the rough from a guy that doesn't, and maybe makes a bogey here or there because of it. He ranks 4th in total strokes gained over the last 3 months in this field, and 7th, and I mentioned his approach in strokes gained approach over the last 6 months. Just shows that, this is starting to become a longer trend for Straka. I'll be honest, his history here, not good. 2 missed cuts in 3 attempts, a 66th was his best. But the last time he played here was 2022. I would think you would agree with me, Andy. He's a different player today in 2025 than he was back there in 2020, 21, 22. So I'm hoping his current form trumps his course history here. But I love the way he's playing. There was a note of him struggling a little bit on Sunday as he was battling illness last week. So, part of this is maybe wait a little bit and try to find some information. If he's not feeling better or something, maybe you hold off. We saw Ludwig Aubert. Well, I forget what tournament that was a few weeks ago, where he got sick and just shot a 79 in the final round and completely blew up. So there is something to be said there. If you are feeling under the weather and you're struggling to get your strength, it is hard to play. So assuming that's behind him for this week, I do like him as a play.
Last week, I actually had Aubert as a player that can trip you up because I was worried about how sick he was. And sure enough, he was awful the first round and then withdraw. So hopefully Straka is not dealing with the same thing that Aubert was. So, Nick, we got a lot of good things going up at WagerTalk. I know you got a 5% best bet up. That is up for Tuesday. So if you're watching this on Tuesday, it's $5 Tuesday for everyone over at WagerTalk. Nick has his play up, but you're going to have a soccer special going up later on Tuesday. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Champions League, Europa League, if you're a soccer enthusiast, the league phase has ended, so the knockout rounds begin next week. Had a fantastic league phase this season, hit 65%, was 22-12 for almost 25 units gained for that run. So hoping to catapult that and piggyback that into future winnings as we go over the last home stretch of this event. So the knockout rounds begin next week. It's basically the package includes every play in UEFA, and I'm throwing in Premier League as well for free. So for $149, you're getting all European soccer because I only cover UEFA and EPL from now through the end of the season, which is May 31. So we're talking pretty much 4 months, Andy, for $149. So that will be up and available later today. And yeah, if you just want to look and have one little play fun for this week, Super Bowl plus Waste Management Open cross sport parlay, 5% play available right now, $5 until midnight on Tuesday.
Love it. All right, we are going to move to players that can trip you up. These are players that I think people are going to want to play on this week, and I'm here just to warn you, be careful, temper your expectations. We'll start with Jordan Spieth. I think he's going to be popular just because of his last 2 finishes here, 6th place the last 2 years. Nick, this guy is such a fade for me. He doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't have a top 20 finish since the Valero Open last April.
Wow.
Yeah. Last 12 months, he's plus 0.30 total strokes gained.
Yep.
Scheffler's plus 4.05. That's outside the top 70 in this field. I really think his career has been derailed by the wrist injuries. I don't think he's 100% with it. And I've always said wrist and back injuries in golf is just the ultimate. It's so hard to get 100% back. I think it's derailed his game. I think his record here is going to make people want to bet him. I'm not going to fall for it. In fact, he may be a bet against if I get a good head-to-head matchup with it. I can't trust him with the wrist injury, and it seems like he's a little bit more focused on things off the course, some of his business dealings and everything. So I fear we may have seen the best of Jordan Spieth. So he's my first guy. Sahith Theegala. I think he's going to be popular because he finished top 5 in 2 out of the last 3 years, but his start to 2025 has been pretty below standards. Plus 0.18 total strokes gained in the 4 tournaments he's played this year. That's just not going to get it done. My problem with putting him in here is this course is so much different than the ones that they've just been playing. Sure. It's a different feel. It's a different environment. The weather is going to be a little bit different, but no finish is better than 36 this year. And he's priced pretty high up there. So he's going to be a guy I'm going to stay away from. Maybe he comes out and plays good. Maybe he just loves playing this course, but I just can't ignore the current form that he's in. So I'll be staying away from Theegala. And then finally, I'm going to stay away from Tom Kim. He finished 7th last week. Here's the thing. Tom Kim got a lot of coverage on that broadcast. I was watching it. They just kept going to Tom Kim and kept going to Tom Kim. I think he's going to be fresh in everyone's mind. But before the 7th place finish last week, he finished miscut and 65th in his previous 2 tournaments. He's finished 17th and 50th here the last 2 years. He's priced as a top 7 guy. And putting, not great, plus 0.07 this year. So I know he can bomb the ball a mile, and you saw some really great shots off the tee from him, but I'm not really sure that's going to get it done when you're not putting well on this course. So that putting plus 0.07, that's enough to keep me away from a guy that's priced in the top 10. So if he putts like that this week, there's no way he's finishing in top 7 and giving you return. So Tom Kim is my final player that can trip you up with Seth Theegala and Jordan Spieth. So I mentioned, guys, a 7-day pass. Listen, it's a Super Bowl. It's Phoenix Open Waste Management. And for me personally, Nick, it's the first darts week for the Premier League that starts on Thursday. So that's big. We swept the board in NBA last night, and we're red hot in NHL as well. So there's just a lot of sports that are going on this week. So why not run a 7-day special? We're 41-17 the last 2.5 weeks for plus 41 units. So all sports across the board are just going really, really well. So we discounted that to $69. Also, that includes a 5% UFC play that goes off on Saturday. We're number 1 this year in MMA profits. So happy to get UFC and PFL off to a good start this year. So no reason to just concentrate on one sport. Take advantage of that 7-day pass. I mean, 5% play is $35. So you're going to get that with everything else included for only $69. So go grab that, wt.buzz/AL. All right, let's move on to our next outright winner. I didn't see this one coming. Austin Eckroat. Normally you see him in DraftKings Darlings. But what do you like about him this week? Some tasty numbers there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about normally seeing him in DraftKings Darlings section. But listen, I've changed the title of my little section here to just, instead of just calling it outright winners, it's more get your money behind, and that means maybe you break it up a little bit. Yeah. You're not going to get a number like this 100-1 on an outright winner without a little risk, right? So Eckroat is definitely going to be that guy this week, but I think he has the more than capable of getting a good finish. And I think if you kind of throw a couple bucks, we'll call it pizza money on the outright, but really put more of your investment into him and like the finish markets, the top 10, especially the top 20 I like this week. I think that's where he's got a really good chance to cash. If quietly, I'll say he ranks 13th, Andy, in total strokes gained over the last 6 months in this field. That jumps to 6th over the last 3 months. He's been below average around the greens. That's the only area he struggles in. But otherwise, he's gaining strokes in all 4 other categories. So let's hope he hits more greens than the rest of the field, and that won't come into play too much. But he started the season solid tie for 15th at the Century. And I know that's limited field, 60-ish players, but tie for 15th at the Century. He missed the cut in the last 2 weeks or 2 straight events after that, which was the Sony Open and the Farmers Insurance Open. But he returned to form last week at Pebble, where he finished tied for 13th. Before that, in the fall, tied for 17th at the RSM Classic. And, of course, he had that win at the Worldwide Technology Championship. So, Andy, that's 4 top 20 finishes in his last 6 starts. Not a bad trend to follow for a guy getting plus 280. To do it again this week on the that's the regular market. If you go to the including ties market, which I always like to recommend to play on guys like this, where you tie for 19th will cash in full. It's only plus 250, so it's not a big drop in price to get him including ties. So I think he's got a good chance to be in the mix. Do I really think he's going to win this thing? Probably not. But 100-1, throw $10 on it and then put most of your investment on the top 20, because I do think at almost 3-1. On your money, I think he's got a really good chance to be in that mix on Sunday.
Love that one. Austin Eckroat. Yeah, close to 3-1 on top 20. Some of these events, man, like I know there's a lot of big name guys at the top, but man, it falls off a cliff.
It does.
Once you get to that 7, 8, 9, 10,
that's what I mean.
It's a crapshoot. So yeah, I love that play. If you guys could do us a favor, hit the like button, leave us a comment in the comment section. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that, man. We have so many Super Bowl prop videos and prediction videos that are out. Nick and I will be here every week breaking down all the golf tournaments. So hit the subscribe button. That way you get notified when all these videos come out. But in the meantime, if you could just hit the like button, leave us a comment. It just really helps the algorithm, helps us rank a little bit higher on YouTube. Appreciate you guys. We've been off to a really good start this year. So hopefully we keep the momentum going, and we will finish up here with some DraftKings Darlings and a cross-sport parlay. I'm going to start with Adam Shank here. So Shank had the withdrawal at the American Express. Said he cited back spasms. He finished 6th the week before that, and then he played the very next week and finished 25th. So I kind of got to believe that the back spasms aren't that big of a deal. And he likes playing here, 17th and 23rd the last 2 years. So 6,600 at this price, if he's fully healthy and he can rip off another top 25 finish, this is the steal for DraftKings Darlings this week. Adam Schenk at 6,600. I'm going right back to my boy Lee Hodges. Yeah. Nick, he was like, I think he was like second lowest price guy last week, which made no sense. Then he finished 33rd. So he was easily the best DraftKings darling. So I'm going right back to him. 33rd out of 80 golfers last week at one of the lowest prices. Then now he's finished 10th, 34th, 9th, and 33rd the last 4 weeks. Yeah, my worry is he's missed the cut the 2 times he's played here. We might be playing with fire, but yeah, I love his current form. Plus 1.40 total strokes gained this season. That's 12th best in this field. That's 12th best. We're getting him at 7,100. And then Sam Stevens so far, MVP for DraftKings Darlings. Just rinse and repeat. 17th last week. That's 4 straight made cuts for him. He's been in our lineup almost every week. He finished 28th here last year, so he's comfortable playing here. They bumped his price up though. Unfortunately, this used to be a $6,600 guy. Now he's 7,600, but I will continue to keep playing him. So I've got my article up on my wt.buzz/AL. It's free. It gives you the rest of this, the full lineup for DraftKings. So if you want to do that, I also include all the write-ups that I did for the players that can trip you up in the individual hole breakdown. So, all right, Nick, let's get to the cross sport parlay. Let's have a little bit of fun here. We've got Scottie Scheffler holding the broken wine glass with Saquon Barkley to score a touchdown at plus 160. Walk us through this one.
That's great. Full transparency. Listen, I don't think I need to explain too much on Scheffler as to why, betting him in any sort of fashion this week is probably a good idea. You could go safer and take him as a top 10. I went with the top 5. It gets us a plus 160 return. I think if you go top 10, you're going to be closer to about even money. So play with that if you want. Full transparency on the NFL. I am not an NFL handicapper. I don't know if Barkley at minus 190, which is where I'm seeing him on the major markets, is a good value price for him to be an anytime scorer. But I'm an Eagles fan. I'm a football fan. I love the team. They run the ball better than anybody in the league, and that's what's gotten them to this point. He's going to get his chances, right? He gets 20-plus touches every single week. The only thing that worries me is, of course, you get down to the 1-yard line, and the Eagles love their tush push, and Hurts may steal the that goal line score. But man, wouldn't I love to have that prop last week? First play of the game, boom, there you go, touchdown. And he's been doing that a lot. I mean, he's got 20 touchdowns, 15 in the regular season, 5 more so far in the playoffs. So listen, is Kansas City a better team, and it has pretty good defense, and Vic Spagnola's got a great coordinator to try to shut that down? Sure, but they've been running the ball. It's the best offensive line, I think, in the NFL. And again, this is a guy that's not an NFL handicapper, but I like his chances. And you combine him with something with Scottie Scheffler, I think it's got a good chance to cash, and it really just takes your number. I mean, Scottie, let's be honest, put him in the top 10, he's going to finish top 10. Nothing's guaranteed in life, but you get even money now all of a sudden on Barkley to give me an anytime touchdown score. I think that's just kind of how you and I look at these cross-sport parlays, Andy, is you try to find that one leg that you really think is going to have no problem cashing, and it just helps you out in the odds of something else that you weren't, you wanted to get a better price on. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. Go Birds, but I think Saquon's going to get the job done for us, and Scottie, I'm not worried about his finishes here. Andy, what is it? It's third, win, 7th. So that's why I said maybe top 10, but he's going to have to win this week. That's it.
Well, Nick, you don't have to be this big-time NFL handicapper to know that Saquon Barkley is good.
Player, right? That's all I need to know. He killed it in fantasy. He scores every dang week.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So love it. There's your cross-sport parlay. Scheffler top 5 and Barkley touchdown. So I actually worked with a girl that did that. What Scheffler did to his hand.
Really?
Yeah. I was right out of college. I was working in a restaurant, and she was polishing a wine glass. It broke, and it went right. I mean, just right clean in there. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, I know how easy that is to happen. So it is just funny. Like, of all the players of all the people on tour that we would have in an orange jumpsuit from jail, and now you can put a wine glass. It's Scottie Scheffler, one of the most boring, laid back guys on not John Daly,
Yeah, sure, of course.
Not some of these other guys, but Scottie Scheffler. Amazing. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Don't forget to go check out Nick's $5, 5% cross-sport parlay that's available on WagerTalk. For myself, go take advantage of that 7-day special. Knock down to $69, includes 5% UFC plus all of our other sports as well. Thanks very much, guys. It's Waste Management Phoenix Open Week, so it's always going to be a good time. Don't forget to join us next week. Same time, same place here on Tea Time. Good luck on your place, and we'll see everyone next week.